Welcome back to the Power Chat, sponsored by Blue Mark Energy. We're here in the WTC Gig-Powered Studios. We continue our discussion with Courtney Messingham. He's now in Manhattan, Kansas, and he's getting to play a lot of golf. Did you know Courtney Messingham and Chris Kleiman are golf buddies? Let's get going with the second half of our Courtney Messingham Power Chat. Welcome back to the Power Chat with Kansas State Offensive Coordinator Courtney Messingham from WTC Gig-Powered Studios. We got your career kind of covered in the first half of this, and it's a long journey, and there has to be a sense of permanence now being at Kansas State. You guys win 8 games, and you kind of got to feel like you're settling in, because assistant coaches in general, are kind of vagabonds. Mm-hmm. And to find that spot where you can settle in has to be nice.
Yeah, very much so. But it's got to be the right place. I mean, you got to feel comfortable. Your family's got to feel comfortable. The good part for us is we just have one, but our daughter lives in St. Louis. 5.5 hour drive. Her ability to get over here for all the home games has been great. And then, us as a family just enjoying the place that you're at.
Right.
And the second part is having a legit opportunity to win on the football field. So if you have that opportunity where you feel like you can compete and have chances to win, and then you feel good about, just from a family standpoint, it's a great fit, and Manhattan's been great.
Yeah. When North Dakota State fans came down for the game a few years ago, I was just struck by the similarities between the fan base, the kind of almost obnoxious fandom, just addiction to the team.
Yeah.
And of course, it's, really rabid in Fargo because you guys kept winning and winning and winning. But it never quite went away here, even though the peak came down the backside. But being able to pick up a program with those kind of expectations has to be nice.
Yeah, and I think there's, and now that I've been in a number of places, obviously, and some of them truly understand what it means to support a program. And Kansas State, administratively and from a fan base, understand that there's going to be ebbs and flows, but you got to be all in. You can't be the fair weather fan that becomes when all of a sudden we have that year where you're winning 9, 10, 11 games where now I'm a supporter. And they've had great support here, and they've won tons of football games, obviously. But even when it's maybe a, quote, down year, whatever that might be, the fans still are all in. And that's part of why this place is as special as it is.
And it's been breakneck for you. I mean, you guys arrived, you had recruiting to do, you had to get ready for spring football, you go through the season, more recruiting, bowl game, more recruiting.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming here on your first vacation day since the season. It's, people don't understand. It just doesn't stop, and you finally got to a little pause before spring football.
Yeah, well, the average person, not being negative to them, they think, well, what do you do with all your time off? The season's over. What do you do with your time off? Well, college football is really, it's 24/7, 365, and especially with the advent of telephones that you can carry with you, and the internet and social media, all the time you're on your phone DMing someone or texting someone, and at times I feel like, well, I wish it was 1990 again, where you didn't have all that access to be able to continually recruit them all the time. But you have to now, because recruiting is the lifeblood of your program.
Will you be golfing on this time off? It's not exactly good golf weather in Manhattan, Kansas right now.
Well, that's the one good thing, though, from a golf standpoint. Manhattan is far enough south that we do have days where it's nice enough and you can get out and
Steal
play.
a day.
Yeah, and, because shoot, when it's 55 to 68, which I think it was just a day or so or a few days ago, you can get out and play, and I love to play the game, and if opportunity comes, I'm going to go play.
How good of a golfer is Courtney Messingham? Come on.
Above average, but
Above
a long
average.
ways from real good.
When did you kind of fall in love with golf?
Crazy enough, it goes all the way back to grade school.
Really?
Well, even though Waterloo's a northern city, phenomenal golf deal for young kids. People would think I'm making it up when I tell you that it costs us $2 for the entire summer, and we could play 3 courses, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and for the entire summer it only costs $2. Not $2 each time, $2 for the year.
Wow.
And we just had to be off the course by 1 o'clock. And then as you decided golf was important or you wanted to do it more, a season ticket was only about $58 for the entire summer, and you had the same rights as an adult. So we all grew up in that community playing golf.
Including Chris.
Yes, sir.
You guys
Yeah.
still golf? Do you golf? Do you team up or are you competitive against each other?
No, we're competitive, but golf is much more of a little bit of a relief and a downtime, and we'll competitively play, but we might play for a quarter a hole or a dime a hole, because it's not about how much you're going to possibly win, it's about who ends up winning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you beat him?
Periodically. He is my boss. So.
He seems like a good boss, though.
He is. He is, and he's a good golfer. But he's a good athlete. So.
Still, he keeps himself in pretty good shape.
Yes, sir.
Got some guns on him. I don't know about that. How bad is the beard on Scotty Hazelton? What do you think of the beard?
Well, I love it, actually.
Sure. You're just nice to everyone.
No, it defines him.
It does.
It's his personality. It is, I think he had to trim it up a little bit before we had our first pictures when we got here.
So funny.
It defines him. It's who he is. And that's part of why our staff is so good together, is because we've got a variety of guys and experiences, yet most, not all, but most of our staff has come up through and have understood that it's more about the people and how you interact with them, not about where you've been all the time. Scotty is a small college guy as well, that had an opportunity to go all the way and was very successful coaching in the NFL, but yet played at a small college level and then coached at that level, coached at North Dakota State. Van Malone coached at North Dakota State.
It's crazy.
There's a bunch of us that understand that it's more about the people than it is about the how big the stadium is.
Chris brings 4 of you from Fargo, and then it kind of turned into an eclectic mixture of guys on the staff. Now, offensively, you've got 3 of you from North Dakota State, but it really seemed to have clicked. Everyone just kind of settled into a spot. And
I would say that most of us had some tie to someone, that you knew who and what you were getting from a person. Because Coach Kleiman's still all about making sure they're going to fit. From their families to their personalities to you name it, it's how can we all mesh together, and you're together too many hours out of the day to not have guys that you feel good about outside of the football arena.
Manhattan, Kansas, what's it meant to you and your family?
Well, I've just been so impressed with how much people want to reach out and want to tell you, hey, how excited they are that we're here. It doesn't matter if I'm at a basketball game or whatever. Somebody's going to come up and say hello and shake your hand and say, man, we're glad you're here. Now, obviously, the more you win, the more happy they are that you're here. But I think win, lose, or draw, at least initially, the folks in Manhattan want to give you that opportunity to get to know you.
Yeah, it's it's a special place. It really is
Yeah.
a cool place. And these facilities really give you something to sell, don't they?
Very much so. I think the average person that would not know what to expect when they get to Manhattan, they're surprised. And we recruit obviously young men that are getting recruited by not everybody in the country, but definitely getting recruited by the main schools in the Midwest. And I think most people are pleasantly surprised when they get here and they see what from the stadium to the community to you name it. I think they're impressed with what they see.
I want to get back into the offense a little bit. It seems to me, I'm a very traditional football guy. I'm not a spread guy. I think that's a generation that learned to coach football on PlayStation.
Yeah, very much so.
I'm a running game. Let's go assert our will on the other team. This has got to be a fun offense to coach.
It is. I think the main thing, though, that I keep trying to hammer our guys on is you have to be able to be efficient with the passing game.
Right.
Meaning, if people are going to figure out how to stop the run, then we have to be able to throw the football. And I would tell you I'm a run game guy, but the places I've been when we've left, all the way back to St. Ambrose, we've either had a wideout or a quarterback or somebody in the passing game aspect that, if not the number one guy, very high up in the record books for wide receivers. And what I'm getting at with that is, at times people can say, well, man, that's all they're going to do is 3 yards in a cloud of dust. No, I played for what you would know the name. A lot of people maybe wouldn't, but I played for Earl Bruce for a year. Now he's 3 yards in a cloud of dust guy.
He's very old school.
Yeah, I have no desire to be that. I want all of our offensive guys to feel like I got a legitimate role in this thing, and that we're going to throw the football, but we're going to throw it by setting it up a little bit through the run. Now, Easton Stick, who's obviously an extremely good football player for us at North Dakota State, there were games where the first 25 plays he threw it 12 times. And you'd say, wow, really? Well, yeah, because people were going to figure out how to stop the run, and our ability to throw play action, and his pass efficiency was somewhere in the 170 range. And you say, wow, he was efficient. Yeah, he took full advantage of what people were giving him, and he had good players around him. He had good wideouts and good tight ends.
For me, a running game is the fulcrum. It's the point where you can then leverage the defense into things that you really want to do. And maybe that's more run game, but if they want to commit enough resources to stop that run game, it certainly exposes them, doesn't it?
Oh, very much so. But I think the thing that I learned from Kevin Wilson is you can be an 11 personnel, have 3 wide receivers, and still punch people in the mouth trying to get off the ball and be violent. But then when they're gonna stop that run, have 3 wideouts out there that create issues for them. And that's why at Indiana we had wideouts that were over 1,000 yards receiving and tailbacks that were rushing for over 1,000 yards. And that's, to me, where we want to get to, is where wideouts have a ton of yards receiving, tight ends have a bunch of touchdown catches, maybe not nearly the number of catches as a wide receiver, and then tailbacks that are rushing for near 1,000 yards or more.
And you inherited a situation here where you had a veteran offensive line that the way Connor Riley might go about doing business is a little bit different, but they were used to being physical, being run-based. I mean, you could have gone into a place where, we've been pass blocking. We don't really know how to do this.
Yeah.
And a quarterback who understood the system and seems to fit the system really well. It's just got to be amazing.
The bigger deal probably was their desire, being those O-linemen, to learn a new system and not balk at it. Because it could have been very easy for guys that have had 30-plus starts to say, hey, we got this figured out. No, that's not how we do it.
Yeah.
And they jumped right in with Coach Riley and said, okay, I'm double teaming. I'm calling it a different name maybe when I'm communicating, but it's still double teaming. I'm down blocking now. You might be asking me to use a little bit different technique, but I'm still double teaming down on a down block scheme. And attribute to those 5 guys, and really attribute to Skyler open-minded, wanted to be sponges and learn a new way to do things. But the bottom line is still, it's football, and they had played a bunch of football and were ready to learn a new way to do it.
When you go back and look at some of the games this season, and particularly maybe the Liberty Bowl, does it kind of, do you go replay it saying, I should have done this, should have done that?
Oh, very much so. Yeah. You know, the one that I probably go back to, well, there's two or three, obviously, you go back to, and it's obviously the ones that you didn't maybe have as much success as you wanted to. But, you know, one I'd go back to and say West Virginia, the last offensive play. If I'd probably call a different play than we did, even though that one still had a chance.
Yeah,
I think, unfortunately, didn't work quite as well as we wanted to. But what I'm getting at there is, you always go back and you look at those ones, especially where one play could maybe have changed the outcome.
Absolutely.
And you feel like, hey, we got to execute, because that's always the bottom line, is execute. But calling plays and putting guys in position to execute are huge. And then having them feel comfortable that they can go make that play. And, you know, when you look at the Liberty Bowl as an example, and you say, hey, give them a lot of credit. They played their tails off, and their offense and our offense both in general want to do the same thing, and that's grind that thing and grind the clock. You know, but what a lot of people, the outside, wouldn't realize, offensively, we had 8 possessions. The problem with that is one of them was a take a knee at the end of the half, and the other one was the last play of the game. Those are 2 of the possessions. So we had 6 true possessions in that game.
It's incredible.
Which we did not score enough on our 6 opportunities, and we needed to, obviously, because the style of football that we want to play and that they want to play creates a game that's going to be low opportunity when it comes to touches, total number of touches. And we needed to take more advantage when we did have those opportunities.
It struck me as that game played out, a couple things. First of all, what you mentioned, that they did to you perfectly what you want to do to other teams.
Well, yep.
Yeah, you can hurt us with your offense, but not if it's not on the field. It was frankly, it was impressive to watch.
Yep.
The other thing was that opening sequence of plays all should have worked, but the execution, drop, underthrow, drop. You should have had a series of big plays early that would have changed the game.
In my mind, that changes the whole dynamic of the game twofold. One, our offensive mindset, truly feeling like, hey, I think we've got a good beat on who they are as a defense, and we've got them on their heels. Putting 7 points on the board obviously puts them on their heels. Unfortunately, didn't work out that way, and the way the game unfolded, you needed to take more advantage of opportunity. Now, Skyler ended up 10 for 14, which makes you say he threw it around well, and he did. But as you said, there was 2, actually 3 total, but 2 plays right there in that first series that easily could have been big plays for touchdowns. And you need to make those. And that's when they don't happen, you got to move on. But unfortunately, when the game played out the way it did, you really go, boy, those were missed opportunities, and you didn't have a lot of other opportunities.
Yeah, just because they wouldn't let you have the ball. How frustrating is it to play a team like Navy?
It's more frustrating probably to see the dude that was their trigger guy. Their quarterback was phenomenal to watch. As a offensive guy up there, happened to be in the press box, not that matters, but watching him play the game, you go, wow, that guy, he's a special guy, and he really was.
What I admire about it is they have what they have. You know, it's there's real limitations for an academy, and how they make the most of that. Run a system that works perfect for them.
Yeah, well, and it's still about the trigger guy. Right. You know, 2 years ago, obviously, their system and what was going on for them wasn't nearly as successful. Right. The trigger guy, and then things start falling in place. That belief, that knowing that you put yourself in a position to make a play, they're going to make it. In my mind, in 2012 with Colin Klein, I think everybody at K-State knew you give him the ball. Doesn't matter if it needs to be the last drive of the game or if it needs to be just moving the chains, he was going to make it happen. And that's what I think is so important, is the mindset, the belief, the knowing the guy next to me is going to make that play when it comes to him. And knowing that if that's you, that's good. Make that play.
8-win season, even though the bowl game didn't work out. That's got to feel good. It kind of builds on that belief that you guys are going to win and get it done. And
yeah, I would say that the 8 wins isn't maybe the key. It was starting out fast, having a big win on the road at Mississippi State, and then having some adversity. Did not play well against Oklahoma State and a Baylor. Now, ended up being Baylor was probably a little bit better team than most people would have thought, but still we didn't play as well and didn't make as many plays as we could have. And then having what I still consider to be a big win against TCU. Coach Patterson has done a great job over the years. You know that you're going to be in a fight when you play a TCU, and we figured out how to make plays. And then to go play the way we played against an Oklahoma, you start getting some true buy-in where the players feel like, you know what, if we do execute, if we do understand the why when we're learning the system, it'll work. And that hopefully then helps us in the recruiting process, because our players can sell to those high school young men that, no, I'm telling you, the system works. The style of football we want to play works. The environment that you're going to be in works. And that's, like I go back to, it's still about getting the right people in here, and those are the right players in here.
Use fullbacks and tight ends. Not a lot of high schools are doing that anymore.
No.
How difficult is it to get out there and find those guys?
Well, it's a huge projection most of the time. You're trying to find that 6'3" to 6'5", 215 to 225 pound guy that's going to end up being 250, 255. The problem is a lot of those guys right now are not putting their hand on the ground, and they're not an extension of the O-line in their systems. So that becomes a little bit of a struggle. But you also want to get around them. You want to get them to campus. You want to get them to camp so you can see their mentality. Because just because you don't happen to have your hand on the ground doesn't mean that you're soft. I mean, it doesn't mean that you won't and kind of enjoy the aspect of the hitting aspect of football.
That tight end is such a connective tissue of an offense, and you've got to find a guy that, hey, on this play, you're an offensive tackle, you're a second tackle, and then on this play, you need to be a receiver.
Yeah. Well, and I tell those guys when they first get here, with the exception of the quarterback position, the tight end position probably has the most on his plate. And the reason I say that is he has to truly understand the route schemes. He has to understand the passing game. He has to pass pro sometimes. He has to be in the protection sometimes. And then he's got to understand all the run blocking stuff. Now, obviously the QB, I feel like he's got a little more on his plate because of the whole offense.
Sure.
But from the tight end position, you've got to really understand a bunch of football.
You run one of my favorite plays, the running back wheel route. What did that come out of that North Dakota State system that was up there? And it's really kind of caught on, hasn't it?
Yeah, the biggest thing there is if you can't run the ball very successfully, though, it generally doesn't work as well for how we're trying to set it up. Because we're trying to set up a lot of the wheel stuff with the running back running the wheel off of a play action. There's times we'll do it just out of a straight drop back, but much more for us, we're trying to get a linebacker really in a tough situation. Does he go play that thing as though it's a run blocking scheme, or does he play it just pass right away? If he plays it pass right away, then obviously it's not as good a scheme generally.
You mentioned this earlier, that you're running out of more shotgun now than you have. And I'm going to be blunt here. Does this offense work as well out of shotgun than
certain aspects of it work much better from under center. They do. Other parts of it, depending on, obviously, if you're trying to make the quarterback a run threat, obviously then it becomes probably more of it's a better offense out of the gun. I think from a mindset standpoint, though, we're always going to be an under center team at heart.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. I approve of that. Courtney Messingham, maximizing protection and coverage with the shield punt. I take it was that you and not some other Courtney Messingham?
Yeah.
I found that gem on Amazon. It's still available for sale. How did that come about?
Well, when I was at Iowa State, did not have the coordinator, quote, special teams coordinator title,
Right.
but basically was the special teams coordinator. Ran the punt, and the style of punt that we ran was something at that time that a lot of people were getting into.
And that's that kind of wall.
Yeah, it's the
whatever
it's
you
the,
I don't know
yeah,
what
it's
it's
the well, most people would say it's kind of a shield punt.
Right.
You got three big dudes back there kind of setting up a wedge or a wall so that you're right in front of the punter. But it was kind of a hot deal back then in the
Well, it did. It went
yeah.
from, honestly, kind of felt like a gimmick at first, and then you realize, well, this works.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the numbers. I mean, I'm not the number guy around here, but it seems to me that once that caught on, the number of block punts dropped dramatically.
I would agree with you. The other thing that it did, it allowed you to really get 7 guys trying to go cover down as fast as possible, rather than only 2 outside wide kind of, quote, gunner guys trying to go down and cover down as fast as possible. It allowed you to get up front guys being DBs and linebackers, and guys that could run to cover down faster. My first year running it at Iowa State, we were fortunate. We had an older guy that understood the punt itself as far as because it's directional as well, meaning you're trying to punt it to one corner or the other, and they did a phenomenal job covering down.
Kind of a weird question. As a special teams coordinator, when that punter mishits the ball and it goes the opposite direction, is that like watching a car crash in slow motion in your head?
I'll take that one much better than when you hear the 2 thumps. The punter's foot hitting the ball, and then one of the defensive guys hitting the ball is the worst sound in football.
I agree. Okay, so we finish up every one of these with something called the overtime, and 5 kind of fun questions from one of the users. This from my buddy Wagcat, who apparently knows how to ask these questions better than other people. So here you go. 5 things to finish us up here with the overtime. What local food is ordered into the football complex most of all?
Ooh, probably Coco Bolos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty solid go-to right there.
Exactly.
Pretty solid. What has the family enjoyed about Manhattan the most so far?
Probably the ability to go out and not have to go to the same place more than, we go to the same place more than once, but there's tons of variety from a local places to go eat.
It's amazing. What is kind of the go-to local place?
It's a little bit hit or miss. We'll go downtown and we'll go 3 places: downtown, or we'll go Aggieville, or we'll just stay more out by like Colbert Hills area. Right. But there's a number of places in all 3 of those.
Yeah, you never run out of options.
No.
I find myself like, when people ask me for restaurant recommendations, I actually recommend places I haven't been to in a year. I'm like, why haven't I been there? I just recommended it to someone. Yeah. The better mascot from your past, the Peacocks or the Fighting Bees? What horrible mascots for a football team.
Well, I'm going to tell you, that Peacock's a mean bird now. I'm going to tell you that.
Colorful but mean.
Yes. Yeah.
I was going through and like, who are the Peacocks in there?
Yeah.
If you hadn't been a football coach, what else would you possibly be doing?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I'm a manufacturing major with a master's with a master's in business. Probably would have went into, quote, the real world and gotten a job at like John Deere or something like that, because John Deere's huge. In Waterloo.
Would you be happy?
As long as I was playing a lot of golf on my downtime.
There we go. And finally, Coach K really well. Outside of golf, name the kind of odd skill, ability, game sport he's good at that people wouldn't guess.
Well, I think maybe people would guess, but anything that's hand-eye coordination. That's why he was such a good hitter when we were growing up in baseball. That's why he's if he's playing basketball, he can shoot the 3-pointer. His hand-eye coordination is big time, and that's why he's such a good golfer, is his ability to putt.
Good boss. Seems like a good boss. Seems like open to ideas.
Lets us do our job. Is a guy that I think the players understand it, and us as coaches understand. I'm not going to micromanage. You're our quarterback. Figure it out. Understand it. Take the coaching. You're my offensive coordinator. Figure it out. Lead this side of the ball, he gives great input, not afraid to give input by any means, but he's hired us to do a job, and he lets us do our job.
That's good. I like that management style. One thing I forgot to ask you about, they just announced that the spring football schedule and no game this year. You're going to have the open practice on a Friday. I'm a fan of that. I know maybe I'm out of the norm on that, but how do you feel about a coach?
From a coaching standpoint, I'm much more would like to scrimmage, but don't want to use an entire padded practice for a game setting that most of the time you're scared about all the media that's there, so you're only doing certain aspects of your playbook. I'd much rather say, hey, let's practice. Whatever people happen to see, they happen to see, but let's get the most out of it to keep getting our guys better.
Stay scared of the media. We're shifty. We're very shifty.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for the Power Chat with Courtney Messingham. We will see you real soon with another talk.